welcome everyone. Welcome to our channel. Today we're going to be talking about Small Things Like These by Keegan. This book won the Booker Prize in 2022 or shortlisted. This book is a very short book. It's about 116 pages. The book focuses around the main character, Bill Furlong, who is a family man along with a businessman. And throughout the story, we kind of follow his day he owns a coal company. So we follow him on his rounds where he goes to the local church, and at that church he kind of not unearths a town secret. It's kind of like an open secret, and now he must come to terms of what he must do with the secret internally. I personally liked it. For a short read, it kind of packed in a lot. I liked how with Bill we were able to see his past with the current situation that he's faced with, along with like his own interactions with his family and his community, and how the author very quickly is able to center us of like where the town is at with this said secret, along with how Bill is dealing with the secret. Well, your takeaway?
I really liked it. Definitely knowing about the Magdalene laundries. There's a portion of the book at the very end where it's like an author's note, and she kind of mentions that it's based off the Magdalene laundries, where these women were basically made to be slave laborers for these laundries, and the church was covering it up, and it went on until like 1996, I think I saw, before there was an investigation and they did something about it. So that put a lot into perspective, because I think the story is written really well, but having that context, it makes this a really, really powerful book, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's so short, and because she gives you a very small amount of information, but you're able to infer so much from it, and you're able, using that negative space, what she doesn't tell, adds a very thrilling and powerful main character.
Yeah. Well, I think too, I didn't want to spoil it, but since we're there, the secret, I think what made it, like you said, that not like negative space, but the way that she was like giving a description of the church and giving a description of the girls as they're cleaning like the outside like steps area and scrubbing, and they had no shoes. They looked kind of like pale and grayish looking. Like you can tell like they weren't kept in good shape. Along with the girl later, you found like she was like starving in this pit. And then like he's like looking around and seeing like things that like all of a sudden like he didn't notice before, like how there's glass on the other side of the fence as like preventing people from climbing over or to run away. Like you can actually get a sense through like those descriptors of how like stuck these girls must have felt as they're like were stuck in this church for free labor. That's
exactly what I was alluding to, where you clearly get a sense without her saying it that this has been hiding in plain sight.
It's like an open secret.
Yeah, and they kind of, the characters kind of get there, but it's mainly, you can also really easily understand that like they're told that these women are there because they're bad. They did bad things and they need God, basically. Like they're a product of sin. They were sinners themselves. And so this is like a good thing. Even if they're being treated poorly, this is what they deserve, essentially. Yeah. And so that's why it was really powerful. I was really impressed. And Bill Furlong, the main character, it was interesting to me seeing how he reacted to women. Like he ends up doing the right thing, and you could tell that he cares about the women in his life. But there's a clear moment in his life where he gets a very deep respect for women in general. And he also is very introspective and says, if these women in this church were my daughters, I would want to defend them. And you could tell that that's clearly the motivation to do what he's doing. He's not just saying, I'm doing this because of rah-rah. It's like a slow build up, and he's convincing himself to do the right thing, because it is such a difficult thing to do in this town, because you have to deal with the derision of the townspeople in this small town where everyone knows each other. You're going against the church, who everyone knows you don't with in this town because of the power that they have.
Well, speaking of like the Claire Keegan alludes to the power, and as we mentioned before, like the relationship is like where Bill found the girl in the coal shack. And all of a sudden the church is like, oh, where did we find her? We thought she was playing hide and seek. You silly girl, where were you all night? We're so worried. Why did they locked her in a coal shack so they know where she was? Clearly she was being punished. Oh, we'll take care of you. And all of a sudden the Mother Superior comes out and is like, well, let me treat Bill to some tea, because clearly they want him, they're setting him up to basically say, like, be quiet. Don't say anything. Here's your cup of tea. They're kind of low-key threatening him, like, oh, we know your daughter's in the choir. She's such a good singer. Oh, you have such good girls, and, like, we want them to succeed and have a good life. And, like, it's like a mild threat, but, like, also them assessing, like, well, is this guy going to do anything? Is he going to say anything? And I think initially during Bill's first interaction, it was kind of like that meme where he's kind of like, what do I do? When he first saw the kids, he's like, I'm just going to give you your coal and bounce. And I think the second time when, like, the same incidents, he got this, again, like, a creepy feeling, things that are not, like, right, or something's not like something's off. That's just when, like, he finally was like, yeah, this is, like, none of this is right.
Well, there's also in the beginning when he is talking to one of the women in captivity, we'll say, he's kind of like, he's kind of like, can you come with me? And she's like, I can't right now. But I forgot exactly what it was. But she basically tells him, like, what I want is to die. Like, I'm ready, like, throw me into the river.
Yeah, unless you're going to take me out of here,
yeah.
then help me. Unless you're going to take me out, like, why are we having this conversation?
Exactly.
He's like, either take me or, like, why are we here?
And then meanwhile, while he's, like, trying to investigate, he just has these like, old nuns, these old grizzled nuns,
like, looking at him.
staring at him, like.
And he's like, okay. And as he's, like, looking.
So it was really, I liked it.
Yeah. No, I liked it. For a short read. And like you said, like, I didn't know, like, we don't know much about the Magdalen laundries. Like, I think from reading the book in general, you kind of have an idea, like, through interactions, like, the church was doing a good job. I didn't know, like, there was a history in Ireland about these laundry services the church is providing. So I think the acknowledgement was helpful to kind of put in place the power of the church and how long this was happening. And how, like, finally the government decided to, like, oh, maybe we should investigate this many years later. So yeah, no, I liked it. And I think an interesting fact to say is that this book also allegedly is going to be being turned into a feature film with Keegan Murphy from, is that him?
Cillian Murphy? Or
yeah.
Cillian Murphy? I don't know how to pronounce his name.
He's the guy from Oppenheimer. He is going to be possibly starring in it, but I know he wants to make it into, like, a feature film. So that's something that I'll be interested to check out.
I don't know how I feel about it being turned into a movie, because I kind of like these stories where it's not necessarily based off, like, a specific person, it seems like. So it's just kind of, to me, a takeaway from these kind of stories is that, like, there are always people throughout history that thought that these things were wrong in the moment and try to do something about it. Same with slavery, same with all these, like, terrible things that have happened. Everyone likes to say back then that was how everyone thought about those kind of things. The church was so powerful and everyone thought the church could do no wrong, and that's why they were able to get away with these things. But then you realize that that's not true. There were people that thought that the church was doing something wrong or that they weren't infallible. But that kind of gets swept over sometimes because people have ulterior motives, or they're ignorant for some reason. So this is another reminder that I like those kind of stories where you see someone doing the right thing even when it was difficult to do. And it's not just like these people that we see in the news or celebrities where you look at a stamp or a dollar bill and you see someone's face and you go, oh, that person was the renowned blah, blah, who did X or Y 100 years ago. This is just an everyday person who was basically did something in their own right. Yeah. That could be anybody. That's anybody's dad. And I feel like you should expect that from the people in your community and the people that you're close to. So how many Kisas do you give it?
I gave it 4 Kisas.
I gave it 4.
We agree. Yeah. So would you read any more of her short stories or books?
No, but I do think she's she's obviously a good writer. This was so well written. It's just having the context makes it way more powerful.
Do you think if you had the small forward noting about this laundries, would that have affected your reading? Would you have wanted that in the beginning, or did you like going through not knowing and then at the end reading that and be like, oh, okay?
So I don't really have a thought on that, except that obviously not everyone is going to feel that way. But for me, the fact that it's a guy basically deliberating over several days. Like he sees something wrong, he deliberates over it, and then he decides to do something. And you don't see the conclusion of that. It's just he decides to make a very subtle stand, knowing the consequences, and that's how the story ends. And because of that, it's just, to me personally, it would have been something, instead of just something that's well written, that cool, I'm glad I read it, I guess, knowing the context. I think knowing the context after helped, was nicer. Because then it was like, oh, wow, you put things in a perspective. But no, I won't. I'm probably not going to read her other works, but we'll see. It did get me interested in learning more about the Magdalene Laundries, which I also think is a really telling thing about the read for me.
And didn't you say it was also, there's a Joni Mitchell song too about it?
Not about the book.
Not about the book,
but
about the Magdalene series.
Yeah, so that was interesting. Yeah, it was great. It's a messed up story. It's a messed up, like the story of the Magdalene Laundries is really terrifying and messed up. So it's nice to read something about something that I hadn't learned anything about before. I don't think it's really for children.
Well, yeah, this is kind of, I mean, you can read this in high school, college, even now. I think you can grasp the idea and the content in this book. I think it's an easy read, it's a short read, and I think it does make you contemplate certain moral things that you think that, or at least you hope you would do. Would you have saved someone? Would you have helped someone in the moment of need? I think it does with very human thoughts and emotions. So I definitely recommend, if you want something to add, like a quick read to add between books, and I totally recommend reading Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. Again, like our video, subscribe to be notified about our next video, which we do monthly uploads. So we hope to see you next month for our next pick. Thank you.
Thanks.